Many people said that talk to anyone is not the easy way if you don't have technique. Today I have technique that show how to talk to anyone.
Chapter 3, Epoxy Eyes. Bring on the big guns. Now we haul in the heavy eyeball artillery. Very sticky eyes or superglue eyes. Let's call them epoxy eyes. Big bosses use epoxy eyes to evaluate employees. Police investigators use epoxy eyes to intimidate suspected criminals. And clever Romeos use epoxy eyes to make women fall in love with them. If romance is your goal, epoxy eyes is a proven aphrodisiac. The epoxy eyes technique takes at least 3 people to pull off. You, your target, and 1 other person. Here's how it works. Usually, when you're chatting with 2 or more people, you gaze at the person who is speaking. However, the epoxy eyes technique suggests you concentrate on the listener, your target, rather than the speaker. This slightly disorients target, and he or she asks, "Why is this person looking at me instead of the speaker?" Target senses you are extremely interested in his or her reactions. This can be beneficial in certain business situations when it is appropriate that you judge the listener. Human resources professionals often use epoxy eyes, not as a technique, but because they are sincerely interested in a prospective employee's reaction to certain ideas being presented. Lawyers, bosses, police investigators, psychologists, and others who must examine subjects' reactions also use epoxy eyes for analytical purposes. When you use epoxy eyes, it sends out signals of interest blended with complete confidence in yourself. But because epoxy eyes puts you in a position of evaluating or judging someone else, you must be careful. Don't overdo it or you could come across as arrogant and brazen. Technique 3, epoxy eyes. This brazen technique packs a powerful punch. Watch your target person even when someone else is talking. No matter who is speaking, keep looking at the man or woman you want to impact. Sometimes using full epoxy eyes is too potent, so here is a gentler yet effective form. Watch the speaker, but let your glance bounce to your target each time the speaker finishes a point. This way, Mr. or Ms. Target still feels you are intrigued by his or her reactions, yet there is relief from the intensity. When love is on your mind. If romance is on the horizon, epoxy eyes transmits yet another message. It says, "I can't take my eyes off you," or "I only have eyes for you." Anthropologists have dubbed eyes the initial organ of romance because studies show intense eye contact plays havoc with our heartbeat. It also system called releases a drug-like substance into our nervous system, phenylethylamine. Since this is the hormone detected in the human body during erotic excitement, intense eye contact can be a turn-on. Men, epoxy eyes is extremely effective on women if they find you attractive. The lady interprets her nervous reaction to your untoward gaze as budding infatuation. If she does not like you, however, your epoxy eyes are downright obnoxious. Never use epoxy eyes on strangers in public settings, or you could get arrested. Do you remember the lyrics to the old Shirley Bassey song? "The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender. Good looking, so refined. Say, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in my mind?" The goal of this first section is not to make you look like a real big spender. Rather, it is to give you the cachet of a real big somebody the moment people lay eyes on you. To that end, we now explore the most important technique to make you look like a very important person. Chapter 4. Hang by your teeth. The minute you walked in the joint, I knew you were a real big winner. When the doctor smacks your knee with that nasty little hammer, your foot jerks forward. Thus the phrase, knee-jerk reaction. Your body has another instinctive reaction. When a big jolt of happiness hits your heart and you feel like a winner, your head jerks up automatically and you throw your shoulders back. A smile frames your lips and softens your eyes. This is the look winners have constantly. They stand with assurance. They move with confidence. They smile softly with pride. No doubt about it, good posture symbolizes you are a man or woman who is used to being on top. Obviously, millions of mothers sticking their knuckles between their kids' shoulder blades and trillions of teachers telling students, "Stand up straight," hasn't done the trick. We are a nation of slouchers. We need a technique more stern than teachers, more persuasive than parents, to make us stand like a somebody. In one profession, perfect posture, perfect equilibrium, perfect balance is not only desirable, it's a matter of life and death. One false move, one slump of the shoulders, one hangdog look can mean curtains for the high-wire acrobat. I'll never forget the first time Mama took me to the circus. When 7 men and women raced into the center ring, the crowd rose as though they were all joined at the end hips. They cheered with one thunderous voice. Mama pressed her lips against my ear and reverently whispered these were the great Wallendas, the only troupe in the world to perform the 7-person pyramid without a net. In an instant, the crowd became hushed. Not a cough or a coke slurp was heard in the big top as Karl and Hermann Wallenda shouted cues to German to their trusting relatives. The family meticulously and majestically ascended into the position of a human pyramid. They then balanced precariously on a thin wire hundreds of feet above the hard dirt with no net between them and sudden death. The vision was unforgettable. To me, equally unforgettable was the beauty and grace of the 7 Wallendas racing into the center of the big top to take their bows, each perfectly aligned, head high, shoulders back, torso out of hips, feet weightless at the zenith of the tent. You spin like a graceful top to the amazement and admiration of the crowd craning their necks to watch you. Now, you look like a somebody. One day, to test hang by your teeth, I decided to count how many times I walked through a doorway. 60 times, even at home. You calculate. Twice out your front door, twice in, 6 times to the bathroom, 8 times to the kitchen, and through countless doors at your office. It adds up. Visualize anything 60 times a day and it becomes a habit. Habitual good posture is the first mark of a big winner. Technique 4. Hang by your teeth. Visualize a circus iron job bit hanging from the frame of every door I walk through. Take a bite, and with it firmly between your teeth, let it swoop you to the peak of the big top. When you hang by your teeth, every muscle is stretched into perfect posture position. You are now ready to float into the room to captivate the crowd or close the sale, or maybe just settle for looking like the most important somebody in the room. You now have all the basics Bob, the artist, needs to portray you as a big winner. Like he said, great posture, a heads-up look, a confident smile, and a direct gaze. The ideal image for somebody who's a somebody. Now, let's put the whole act into motion. It's time to turn your attention outward to your conversation partner. Use the next 2 techniques to make him or her feel like a million.
Now it end. Thanks you for watching and listening.